After giving my son everything, private school, college, a down payment on his house, I was evicted from my own apartment. I called him, crying, and he said, "You should have saved better. I'm not your bank." His wife got on the line and added, "Try a shelter. Or don't." I slept in a Walmart parking lot that night. A month later, a letter from the IRS arrived at his address by mistake. When I opened it, I never thought I'd be the kind of person who ended up sleeping in her car. But there I was, 62 years old, trying to get comfortable in the back seat of my Toyota Corolla, parked in a Walmart lot off Florin Road in Sacramento. The seatbelt buckle was digging into my hip. I stuffed a sweater under it, but it didn't help much. My knees ached. My neck was stiff. I hadn't showered in 2 days. The car smelled like old fast food wrappers and a plastic bag full of clothes I'd grabbed before leaving my apartment. I used to have a life. I raised my son, Kevin, by myself. His dad skipped town when Kevin was still in diapers. Never sent a dime. So I worked. I cleaned houses during the day and worked at a diner at night. For years. I wasn't perfect, but I showed up. I gave Kevin everything I could. I put him in a private school because I wanted him to be around kids who'd go somewhere. I wanted him to dream bigger than I ever did. I helped him apply to colleges, sat with him late at night while he wrote essays. He got into UCLA. I cried when we opened that letter together. I took out a loan to help him with tuition. It wasn't much, but I wanted to do something. I skipped meals to make interest payments on that loan. I figured it would be worth it. He'd take care of me someday. He'd remember what I did. He got a tech job right after graduating. Started doing real well. I was proud of him. Then he met April. That's where things changed. She was from a wealthy family, Bay Area, old money type. Blonde, sharp voice, tight smile. The kind of woman who talks to waiters like they're her staff. I never really felt comfortable around her. She always made little comments, always looked at my clothes like I was some charity case they were doing a favor for. But Kevin loved her, so I tried. They got married in a vineyard up in Napa. I paid for part of the wedding. Not all, but a chunk. $11,000 gone. I never told Kevin I had to pull from my retirement account for that. A year later, they bought a house in Folsom. Nice neighborhood, big garage, open kitchen. Kevin called me, said they needed help with the down payment. They'd figure it out later, he said. It's temporary. I wired him $38,000. That was everything I had. Everything. He promised they'd pay me back within a year. That was 3 years ago. 6 months ago, my rent went up. $1,325 to $1,675. I couldn't do it. My hours at the Dollar Tree were cut, and Social Security didn't cover much. I got behind on rent. Missed 1 month. Then 2. The eviction notice came in the mail on a Friday. I stared at it for over an hour. My hands were shaking. I'd lived in that apartment for 14 years. I'd seen kids grow up there. I'd watched neighbors die. I called Kevin. He didn't pick up the first time. Or the second. He finally answered on the third ring. Hey Mom, what's up? I was already crying. I got an eviction notice, I said. I don't know what to do. I can't. Kevin, I can't sleep in my car. He was quiet. Then he sighed. Mom, I'm sorry, but you really should have saved better. I'm not your bank. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Kevin, I gave you everything. My voice cracked. I helped you get through college, I gave you money for your house. Then I heard April in the background. She asked who it was? Kevin must have put me on speaker, because she chimed in next. Try a shelter, she said. Or don't. Then the line went dead. I sat on the floor of my apartment, crying until I couldn't anymore. That weekend, I packed what I could into my car and drove to Walmart. I lived out of that car for a month. Ate from the dollar menu. Showered at a local gym using a day pass I paid $10 for. It was humiliating. One day, I drove over to Kevin's place to drop off a box of old photo albums. I didn't want to see him, I just wanted to leave the box and go. Photos of him as a baby, school pictures, drawings he made me when he was little. I left the box on the porch. As I turned to walk away, I noticed something in the mailbox with my name on it. A letter from the IRS. It had been sent to Kevin's address. Apparently, I'd never updated my address years ago for some form or other, and he never forwarded it. I shouldn't have opened it. But I did. Inside was a notice about a bank account I didn't know I was still on. Turns out, Kevin had been using an old joint account we opened when he was a teenager. I thought it was closed. It wasn't. The IRS had flagged some suspicious activity tied to my social security number. Multiple transactions, business write-offs, and money classified as family gifts. I sat in my car staring at that letter for over an hour. That's when it hit me. Kevin had been funneling money through an account with my name on it. I took that letter to the IRS office downtown. The agent who met with me looked at everything. I told them the truth, that I hadn't used that account in years, that I had nothing to do with Kevin's business, and that I had been financially cut off by him. They started asking questions. I gave them everything I had. Even old texts and emails where he mentioned money transfers. I didn't know what they'd do with it, but I wanted to clear my name. They said they'd be in touch. A few weeks later, Kevin called. Kevin called me on a Sunday afternoon. I was sitting in my car outside the community center. They had free coffee and decent Wi-Fi, so I'd been going there during the day to look for housing. When I saw his name flash on my phone screen, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. "Mom," he said. His voice was sharp. Not worried, angry. "What did you do?" he snapped. I stayed quiet for a second. "What do you mean?" I asked calmly. "You gave the IRS my name, didn't you?" he said. "They froze our joint account. They're saying I didn't report income properly. They're accusing me of using your information." I took a deep breath. "Kevin," I said, "you've been using an account with my name on it. You didn't ask me. You never told me. That's fraud." He laughed bitterly. "It was just for convenience. You knew about that account. I thought it was closed." He didn't respond right away. I could hear April in the background yelling. Something about their credit cards not working. Then he said, "This is serious. They want records going back 5 years." I didn't say a word. Then he said something that stopped me cold. "They said this could lead to criminal charges." Part of me wanted to feel bad. But I didn't. "You shouldn't have dragged me into this," I said. "You already told me you weren't my bank. I'm not your scapegoat." That's when he exploded. "I gave you a house to visit. I gave you birthday gifts. And this is how you repay me?" I laughed bitterly. "You gave me a visit? After you left me to sleep in a parking lot? After April told me to go to a shelter?" He went silent. Then he hung up. 2 days later, April called me. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't yell. She didn't curse. She didn't even apologize. She said something worse. "Whatever twisted little plan you're playing out, it's going to ruin your son's future. Do you even care?" I played the message over and over. I didn't return her call. Then things started getting worse for them. I heard through a mutual acquaintance, Kevin's old high school friend, that April's parents found out about the IRS mess. Apparently, April's dad was furious. He'd co-signed their mortgage. Now, with the IRS digging through their finances, everything was under review. Their daughter, Maddie, was pulled out of her private preschool. I overheard someone at the Dollar Tree, one of April's old coworkers, say that April was embarrassed to show her face. Good. Because I'd been invisible to them for years. But it wasn't over yet. The IRS sent me more letters. One of them included records that Kevin had claimed me as a dependent on his taxes. Twice. Without my permission. That was illegal. He'd also reported large gifts to family, money I never received. I gave the IRS a signed statement. I included receipts of what I gave him. That seemed to push things further. Then one morning, I got a call from an investigator. Not IRS, State Fraud Division. They asked if I knew Kevin had also received PPP loans during COVID for a consulting business, registered under both our names. I almost dropped the phone. I never signed anything. I didn't even know what PPP loans were until the news started talking about fraud cases. They said they'd need a statement. I agreed to meet in person. I spent the rest of the day at the library, looking up PPP fraud cases. Jail time. Restitution. Some people were going away for years. Kevin hadn't just made a mistake. He'd stolen my identity. And now, he was caught. The last time Kevin and I spoke, he came to the senior center where I'd been getting meals. I didn't know he was coming. I walked out with a paper plate full of chicken and rice, and there he was, waiting by my car. He looked thinner. Pale. Eyes bloodshot. Hands shaking. "I need you to talk to them," he said. "I already did," I replied. I told the truth. He looked like he might cry. "They're talking about charging me," he whispered. I looked at him for a long time. "You didn't care when I called you crying. You said you're not my bank. April told me to live in a shelter. Now you want help?" "I have a family," he said. A daughter. And I had a son. I said. He opened his mouth to say something, then closed it. He left without another word. And then, 1 week later, I got a letter. From the U.S. Attorney's Office. Kevin was officially under criminal investigation for tax fraud and misuse of federal loan programs. And they were asking for more from me. This wasn't just a civil audit anymore. This was federal. I sat in my room holding that letter for an hour before I opened it. It was real. Signed and stamped. The U.S. Attorney's Office was building a criminal case. They wanted to meet with me again. They were gathering statements from affected individuals. That meant me. That meant I wasn't just some side note in this anymore. I was now part of the record. That's when it hit me. Kevin didn't just screw me over financially. He used me. He turned my name into a shield so he could lie and cheat and make money behind the scenes. All those times he acted like he was doing me a favor, inviting me to their house, letting me come to Christmas, buying me a sweater from Target like it was some great gift. He was just pretending. Underneath it all, he was using my name to dodge taxes, get loans, and make himself look good on paper. And now that it was catching up to him, I was the one they needed to tell the truth. Part of me felt sick. Another part? I felt cold. Calm. Like something in me had finally snapped into place. A few days after the letter arrived, I got a message from April. Not a voicemail this time, a text. I know we haven't been on good terms. I'm sorry for that. I didn't know everything Kevin was doing. I'm trying to keep our daughter safe. Can we talk? I didn't respond. I stared at the message for a while, but I couldn't shake the sound of her voice saying, "Try a shelter. Or don't." She knew what Kevin was. Maybe not the details, but the core of it. She knew. They built their life on what I gave, then shut the door on me when it got hard. And now that the walls were closing in, she wanted sympathy. Not from me. A week later, the first real consequence hit. Kevin was fired. The tech company he worked for had been contacted by the IRS about his business activity. Apparently, they had a morality clause. Any legal risk, even if it wasn't directly related to work, was grounds for dismissal. He was let go the same day. No severance. I heard from someone, his old coworker, Gary, who I ran into at the grocery store, that Kevin tried to make it seem like he quit. But everyone knew. A guy doesn't quit a 6-figure job with a baby and a mortgage right after getting hit with a federal audit. The thing is, even though Kevin was going down, I still had more questions. Things didn't add up. Why had I never received alerts from the bank about those transactions? Why hadn't the IRS contacted me sooner? So I dug. I requested copies of the bank records tied to that old account. It took 2 weeks and cost me $25 in fees I could barely spare, but I got them. That's when I saw something that made my stomach drop. Electronic signatures. Dozens of them. My name. Used to authorize transfers, set up loans, claim deductions, even file a business registration with the state. All forged. He hadn't just used the account. He had digitally signed documents pretending to be me. Some were dated during times I was in the hospital. Others during weeks I worked double shifts at the Dollar Tree. There was no way I could have signed them. And then, there was a second name on some of the forms. April. I didn't know if she signed them or if Kevin forged her name too. But now I understood why she'd reached out. She wasn't trying to be kind. She was trying to get ahead of it. I met with the federal investigator again. I brought the records. Pointed out the fake signatures. Gave them a list of dates I could prove I wasn't involved. They asked me to submit a sworn affidavit. I did. And then I asked, "Will this hurt his wife?" The investigator just looked at me and said, "That depends on how much she knew." A few days later, I started getting calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. I knew who it was. Then Kevin called again. I picked up this time. He sounded defeated. "They're talking about indictments," he said. "Not just fines. They're talking about prison." I didn't say anything. "I'm sorry," he finally said, voice breaking. I messed up. I was scared, and I kept digging deeper. April. She didn't know everything. She thought it was just tax stuff. She didn't know about the PPP loans or the forged documents. I could hear him crying. "I don't know what to do." I kept my voice steady. "I begged you for help when I was losing my home. You told me to manage my money better. You let me sleep in a Walmart parking lot." He sniffed hard. "I know. I warned you, Kevin. I told the truth. I'm not protecting you." There was silence. A long one. Then he said, "They're coming after April too. I just wanted you to know." I'm the one who dragged her into this. And then the line went dead. I sat there, staring at my phone. I didn't feel good. But I didn't feel bad either. Something was shifting. The cracks were spreading. And this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. 2 months passed. The investigation got louder. I stopped hearing from Kevin. I didn't care to chase him down. The last I heard, he'd moved into a cheap rental in Citrus Heights. Small place. No garage. April had taken their daughter and gone back to live with her parents in Palo Alto. Then one morning, there was a knock at my door. It was a man in a dark suit and a woman with a clipboard. They handed me a copy of the official indictment. Kevin was being charged with multiple counts of fraud, wire fraud, tax fraud, falsifying government documents, and misuse of federal relief funds. He was also being investigated for identity theft. For using my name and information without consent to secure over $140,000 in loans and write-offs. April? She was named as a person of interest. Not charged yet, but they were looking into her involvement. The forged digital signatures tied back to her personal email account. Whether she knew what Kevin was doing or just looked the other way didn't really matter anymore. Her name was in the file. The trial date was set for 6 months out. A few weeks later, I was asked to testify. I didn't want to. I really didn't. But I knew I had to. He made this mess. And now the truth had to come out of my mouth, under oath. When I walked into the courtroom, I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel powerful. I felt sick. Nervous. My legs shook a little. Kevin wouldn't look at me. He sat at the defendant's table, hands clasped, jaw clenched, wearing a suit that didn't fit him anymore. He looked older. Worn down. He wouldn't make eye contact. The prosecutor walked me through every piece. The joint account. The PPP loans. The fake dependent claims. The forged signatures. I answered everything honestly. When they asked how it felt when he told me to try a shelter, I hesitated. Then I said, that was the moment I stopped being his mother. There was a silence in the room after that. April never showed up in court. Her lawyer said she was cooperating, but not required to testify. Later, I found out she'd cut a deal. She turned over every email, every text, every document where Kevin had talked about the fake paperwork. In exchange, she wouldn't be charged. She saved herself. Just like before. Kevin was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. He was also ordered to pay back every cent of the misused funds, including the money I'd originally given him for the down payment. The court called it misappropriated financial support. He couldn't pay. So they seized the house. April and the daughter had already moved out, but now it was gone for good. Foreclosed. Auctioned. I went to that auction. I stood in the back, arms folded, and watched the house sell for half what they paid. Some real estate investor walked away smiling. I didn't. But I didn't cry either. The best part? 2 months after Kevin went to prison, I got a letter from the state's Victims of Financial Crimes program. Based on my testimony and the restitution order, I was awarded a grant. Money to help me recover what was lost. It wasn't everything. But it was enough. Enough for me to move out of the subsidized senior housing and into a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it had clean walls, a working heater, and a soft bed that didn't smell like old fabric. Enough to buy a used Honda that didn't leak oil. Enough to fill the fridge with food that I picked, not whatever was on sale or donated. Enough to sleep with the lights off and the doors locked, knowing I was safe. Kevin wrote me one letter from prison. It was short. He said he was sorry. That he understood why I did what I did. That he didn't expect forgiveness, but he wanted to say he knew he'd failed me. I never wrote back. Some wounds don't heal just because someone says sorry. April never contacted me again. Last I heard, she moved to Oregon. Changed her last name. Works remote now. Posts photos of hiking trails and lattes like none of this ever happened. I hope she wakes up every day knowing she stepped over a broken woman to protect a man who ruined everything. As for me, I started volunteering at the same senior center that helped me when I had nowhere to go. I serve coffee, organize books, help others fill out housing forms. I'm not rich. I'm not powerful. But I'm not weak anymore. And every time I see a mother come in crying, holding a plastic bag of her life, I sit with her. I let her talk. I pour her a cup of tea. Because I know what it's like to be forgotten. I know what it's like when the person you raised, fed, clothed, and loved throws you away. But I also know what it's like when justice shows up. Not with fanfare. Not with fire. But with a letter in the mailbox. And sometimes, that's all it takes to burn a house down.